This is part 3 of this series on the blindness of feeling untouchable. Before we begin, subscribe to this channel, like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and drop your questions in the comments. I will answer all questions asked as they come. That is why the fall of the untouchable person is often shocking, but not random. It may be surprising, but it is rarely without a trail. The trail may be hidden, denied, edited, or covered, but it exists. Somewhere along the way, the person stopped honoring the truths that used to protect them. They stopped respecting the disciplines that used to steady them. They stopped receiving the voices that once challenged them. Then, when pressure increased, the weaknesses they had ignored were no longer small enough to hide. Sometimes the fall is moral. A secret comes to light. A double life is exposed. A compromise becomes public. A person who once looked disciplined is suddenly revealed to have been living with reckless appetites, concealed patterns, or dishonest behavior. The shock is painful not only because of what was done, but because of the gap between image and reality. People are stunned because the public appearance was so different from the private condition. Sometimes the fall is relational. The untouchable person becomes so proud, harsh, dismissive, or unreachable that trust starts breaking around them. Friendships weaken. Family bonds strain. Partnerships crack. Loyalty erodes. Over time, that relational damage becomes its own kind of collapse. Sometimes the fall is professional. A person who thought they could not be replaced gets replaced. The person who thought their title guaranteed security loses the title. The person who thought they had outgrown accountability is suddenly confronted by a consequence they cannot negotiate away. A door closes. A contract disappears. A platform shrinks. An opportunity goes elsewhere. And in that moment, they discover that position can vanish faster than pride expects. Sometimes the fall is internal before it is external. A person can keep their image and still lose their peace. They can keep their applause and still lose clarity. They can keep their success and still become tormented within. Their sleep changes. Their joy dries up. Their mind fills with anxiety, defensiveness, restlessness, or fear. They become exhausted from maintaining an image that no longer matches their reality. They smile in public and unravel in private. This kind of fall is quieter, but it is still real. One painful reality is that untouchable people often misread the early stages of collapse. When trusted people pull away, they call it envy. When doors tighten, they call it misunderstanding. When consequences appear, they call it unfair treatment. When warnings intensify, they call it opposition. Because pride distorts perception, they do not easily interpret events honestly. Instead of saying, "I need to examine myself," they say, "People are against me." Instead of asking, "What is this exposing in me?" they ask, "Who is threatening me?" That reaction only deepens the damage. Pride not only creates blindness, it also defends the blindness. It keeps the person from learning in time. It keeps them angry at the very moments when they should be broken, honest, and willing to change. And when a person is committed to defending an illusion, they may lose far more than they needed to lose. They may destroy trust that could have been repaired early. They may forfeit opportunities that could have been preserved through humility. They may turn a warning into a wreckage simply because they refused to bow while there was still time. There is another painful feature of this fall. It often affects more than one person. When someone in leadership, influence, or responsibility feels untouchable, their blindness rarely stays private. Their choices can wound families, teams, communities, clients, audiences, and partners. Their self-deception spills outward. That is why this subject matters so much. It is not only about personal survival. It is about the damage that pride can distribute when it is left unchecked in a person others depend on. And still, the worst part of the fall may be the realization that many of these losses were preventable. Not all suffering can be avoided, but some suffering is directly connected to uncorrected arrogance. Some heartbreak follows ignored truth. Some humiliation follows repeated resistance. Some collapse comes after a long season of internal exemption, where the person quietly decided they no longer needed the disciplines, voices, or boundaries that carried them when they were smaller, weaker, and less visible. This is why we must never envy people simply because they look powerful. Power without humility is unstable. Visibility without honesty is fragile. Success without self-examination is dangerous. Some people appear untouchable while their inner life is already cracking beneath them. That is why discernment matters more than appearances. A polished surface can hide a failing structure for only so long. If you recognize any of this, do not wait for a dramatic collapse before you respond. Do not wait until your losses become public before you listen. Do not wait until the damage becomes expensive before you become honest. Many people want rescue after exposure, but resist wisdom before exposure. That is backwards. Rescue often begins when truth is welcomed early. A person who avoids unnecessary ruin is not the person who never faces temptation, pressure, praise, or power. It is the person who keeps returning to humility in every season. It is the person who keeps inviting truth into the room. It is the person who refuses to let applause deafen them or position intoxicate them. It is the person who remains alert even when everything looks successful on the outside. If this message is helping you think more deeply, subscribe, like, share, and leave your questions in the comments. This is part 3 of the series, and I will answer all questions asked as they come. The fall of the untouchable person is rarely a mystery. It is usually the visible end of an invisible drift. Learn from that before your own warning signs harden into consequences. What pride hides, reality eventually reveals. What arrogance protects for a while, truth will expose in time. Let that make you wise now, not sorry later. The lesson is plain. Unchecked pride may delay consequences, but it does not cancel them. The bill always arrives, and when it arrives, it costs more than humility ever would have. Wake,